So with Augusta's release being yesterday, I've been having a lot of fun playing my Augusta, especially challenging tower over and over again. But there are some aspects of Augusta's kit that do frustrate me, so I'm going to be talking a bit about them in today's video. Now first of all, I would like to say that I don't hate Augusta as a character. I love playing her in fact. She's incredibly satisfying. So I'm gonna start off this video by talking about the things I actually like about Augusta's kit, because there is a lot to love here. First of all, Augusta's sound effects are ridiculously satisfying. Playing this character just does not get old for me at all. Whenever I listen to those sound effects, especially paired with Augusta's voice acting, I just can't get enough of it. Second of all, the fact that she has two separate ults that are in no way connected to each other. Sure, we've had double ult characters before, but in all previous examples, being Carlotta, Zani, and Cardathea, they've been start the mode with the first ult, and then the second ult will end the mode. Augusta actually does have the same thing, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the fact that she has two ultimates, being number one, Sublime as the Sun, which is the enhanced ultimate with the ult animations, and then there's also her Eternal Oath ultimate, which is the one that doesn't have a special animation. I like that she has two separate ults. I can press the R button to get two separate effects. And I really like seeing what Kuro Games comes up with all these characters, and especially how they're going to innovate upon these mechanics in the future. I also like just how many resources Augusta has. It really feels like that at every single point in the rotation, you're working on something else, despite it all just being a ruse to cover up you trying to get her ultimate. It really feels like her rotation is incredibly dynamic and never really stays the same, which I really do appreciate. But that's enough glazing for now. It's time to get into the meat and potatoes of the video, being the things that irk me about Augusta. First of all, the way that her outro skill works is something that I feel is incredibly unnecessary. The way Augusta's outro skill works is that we'll give an enhancement to the next character that you swap into, and whenever that other character uses their outro skill, Augusta will gain 1 stack of Majesty. Now this in and of itself is not a big deal. However, what is a big deal is that this enhancement is cancelled whenever you swap out of the character in question. Meaning that if you use Augusta's outro skill into Shorekeeper, you are not able to swap out of Shorekeeper until you use her outro skill. This is, in my opinion, an incredibly unnecessary restriction for a character that already prefers hypercarry teams in the first place. I feel like Kuro Games has had this attitude against Quickswap for a while, to the point where they're taking the Quickswap characters and forcing them into more traditional hypercarry-esque teams. For example, Chong-Li is renowned for her Quickswap capabilities, and yet in the Mono Fusion team, they decided to make her rotation way less focused on quickswapping. Now obviously, a lot of the time that they're trying to make Quickswap worse, they're failing. For example, with Augusta, there's still plenty of workarounds for her quote-unquote inability to Quickswap, but the fact that they're placing these restrictions at all is really annoying for the players who want to optimize her gameplay more. It feels incredibly hostile towards people like myself who really want to push the limits of their character and get faster clear times. But because of things like Augusta's outro skill, my freedom is incredibly limited, and I'm simply unable to do what I would be able to do on any other character. Frolova is very similar in this regard, to the point where the second you swap into Frolova, Hecate will despawn. And because Hecate is so much of Frolova's damage profile, it's basically an insane waste to swap into Frolova unless you're able to get Hecate back as fast as possible. So the fact that Augusta's outro skill feels this anti-quickswap, it just puts a bad taste in my mouth. That's not the only restriction, however, because Augusta does have another thing that makes her a lot worse when you're trying to play her in something like a dual carry composition, being the fact that her enhanced ultimate straight up deletes all other entities from the field that are on your own team. For example, if you're playing Augusta with Frolova, you will notice that during Augusta's ultimate, Hecate is still there. However, the second you cast your finisher, Hecate is destroyed. This really dampers the Augusta-Frolova synergy, which is really unfortunate because even on a calculation basis, it's still performing on par with Mortefi rather than performing better. You're just making a specific synergy with Augusta worse because you don't like the idea of Augusta sharing the spotlight. And may I remind you that these restrictions are incredibly unnecessary. Augusta already prefers hypercarry teams with Mortefi on a sheer damage per second basis, so why are we restricting any other team comp even further than they need to be? This also extends to things like Quick Swap, because if you're playing Chong-Li Augusta, and you're using Chong-Li's heavy attack and then using Augusta's ultimate, you're not actually getting your Chong-Li heavy attack's damage. You're simply getting less damage out of your character if you decide to Quick Swap, and this is really annoying. We really are just restricting our ability to play the character at a level that we want to for the sake of restricting them. Because I've said it plenty of times and I'll say it again, Augusta didn't need these restrictions. Her outro skills restriction is one that was entirely unneeded because the casual player base is already playing in the way you want her to, while the high skilled player base is playing her in their own way that most people wouldn't be able to do. And then her deleting Hecate off the field straight up just makes a synergy worse that would have added more value to Flelova, and it actually would have made more people want Flelova, but we're just getting rid of that for some reason. And that brings me to the final point of Augusta's kit that I dislike, being the fact that Augusta's shield feels like they do nothing. Her shields are incredibly weak. Literally, if you look at Augusta gameplay, you will see that her shield barely covers a slither of her health bar. Augusta's shields are incredibly bad, and if you look at Yuno's kit, her signature weapon, and her signature set, you will know exactly why they gave her a shield. They gave Augusta a shield specifically so they could make a new weapon, a new set, and a new character that synergizes perfectly with Augusta, but with nothing else. Sure, Augusta's signature weapon is still pretty decent on GN, because you're still getting some heavy attack damage bonus, but the Def Ignore is literally impossible to get for anyone whose name is not Augusta. Augusta's shield, yet again, feels like a restriction. Not for Augusta's teammate or rotation this time, but rather for her weapon and set and also her best-in-slot teammate. We don't want weapons becoming universal now, do we? Otherwise we'll have another Stringmaster incident, and we need to power creep weapons again. Rather keep everything incredibly specific, right? I would not be complaining about this if Augusta's shields were actually being used in her gameplay, but they're not. Augusta just creates a shield for the sake of creating a shield, and then we made a weapon and set because of it. Augusta doesn't actually interact with shields as a mechanic, rather she just uses them as a tool to activate specific passives. And for someone who has a love of game design, that's really sad to see. I love playing Augusta, and I really do like her character after finishing her quest, so the fact that there are these elements within her kit that frustrate me like this is really sad to see. But at the end of the day, please do remember that I really do like playing Augusta, and I do like her as a character, quite a lot in fact. Augusta is also by no means as badly designed as Cardathea or Zani in my opinion. I made an entire video on why I don't like the design of the negative status characters, but Augusta is not as bad as these. I still do think Augusta is very friendly when it comes to the average player. When it comes to someone who just wants to enjoy the game and play the character they like, these things are not going to affect their experience. Augusta has a good F2P teammate, multiple weapon options, and feels very smooth to use at a baseline. The restrictions that I take issue with are at the end of the day only for players like me who really want to mega optimize their character. But that's just my thoughts on Augusta's kit design. Let me know what you think about her in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions for me, be sure to join my Discord, which is linked in the description. If you just want to see more of me as a person, check out my second channel, which is also linked in the description. I primarily talk about PGR, but I kinda just make videos about whatever I feel like. But that'll be all from me. Peace.